What's up? I'm Charlie from Charisma on Command, and welcome to the course on developing a magnetic personality and a magnetic presence. Have you ever walked into a room and seen someone there that just had this quality that made you want to get to know them more? And maybe they had the same effect on everyone around them. It was like even when they moved, and certainly when they spoke, people just paid rapt attention. And without even getting to know them necessarily very well, they had these fantastic opinions about them. So maybe you knew someone like this in your life, or maybe you've seen them on TV, right? If you think of someone like a Bill Clinton who walks into a room, and whether you like him or not, you cannot deny that the guy has presence. A lot of people see this, either in Bill Clinton or in somebody that they know, and they just assume that this is something that people are born with, right? That person has it, I don't, them's the breaks, what am I going to do? And the truth, it couldn't be further from that. Actually, what's going on is that everyone that has a magnetic personality has a concrete set of behaviors and mindsets that enable them to draw people in. And if you can do those same sorts of behaviors and believe those same mindsets, you too can develop a magnetic personality. So what exactly does it mean? Well, in this course, we are going to go deep into the body language, the tonality, the way that you speak, the eye contact, and of course, the mindsets, the things that you believe about any sort of interaction that are going to enable you to draw people to you and have that sort of magnetic presence that makes people not only want to get to know you, but walk away with a really good impression, even if you don't get to spend a lot of time with them. Now, because this course is on a magnetic presence, we're not going to focus a lot on the topics of conversation, right? That is topic for another course. This is very, very much about how you present yourself to the world and what people's immediate reactions are when they see you and meet you for just a short period of time. So if you're on board, without any further ado, let's just jump right into it, how to develop a magnetic personality. So think back to that person that maybe you know, maybe you saw them on TV, and ask yourself, when did you first know that they had that sort of presence? Now, for some people in your life, maybe is when you were conversing with them, but certainly others, it was almost immediately, right? They just walked in and sort of had that aura. So this is the first thing that we have to do, is we have to somehow capture people's attention with things that we do. Because the truth is, you don't get a chance to talk to everybody, right? So the first part of developing a magnetic personality, and the first section of this course, is going to be all the things that we can do to help capture attention without being some sort of obnoxious jerk, right? These are positive ways to capture people's attention. But then if you have someone's attention and don't know what to do with it, you're going to falter. So the second part of this course, equally important, is going to be pulling people into your world. Because when you think about it, that's really what's happening when you encounter someone with that sort of magnetic pull. Like, they can be talking to a topic that you maybe know nothing about and previously had no interest in, but as they stand there and speak to you and converse with you, you feel more spellbound and pulled into their universe, where this is such suddenly a fascinating and important thing, right? You think of maybe Neil deGrasse Tyson talking about physics, whereas in 11th grade physics class, you had no interest. So those are the two main parts of the course. First, capturing attention, and then pulling people into your world. And there are specific techniques that will do both. But we're going to start, obviously, at the beginning, because you can't pull people into your world until you have their attention. So that is where we will begin. So I know I asked you to do this at the beginning of the last clip, but bear with me one more time. Think back to that person that you knew that had this magnetic personality, and ask yourself, when did you first realize it? So if it wasn't that long ago, you might be thinking, honestly, it was before I even spoke to them. And that's very common, is that people walk in, command a room, and just give others a feeling about them. So that means that yes, tonality is important. Yes, eye contact is important. Of course, the conversations that you have with people are important. But by far, the first and most widely spread impression that you're going to make on people is at a distance, right? Everyone that you've ever walked past in a building or on the street or in a bar is forming some sort of impression about you. And a huge component of it has to do with how you physically carry yourself, right? This is your posture. And when you think about it, this makes a lot of sense, right? Because what else is your posture other than an indication of how healthy you are? And if you watch as people get older and more infirm, they start to break down and hunch over. When people are young, they tend to have better posture. Unfortunately, our modern society has messed this up, but I'll get to that later. Beyond just a physical sense of health, your posture is also a really clear indicator of how you feel. Because if you've ever been on top of the world, right, you just won the lottery or you just killed it in some presentation, you're going to walk around with a more open, expansive, and expressive posture. Now, if something terrible just happened to you on the converse, you're probably going to shrink. You take up less space. So the way that people see you and your posture has the first immediate impact on what they think of you. Because the truth is, what a magnetic personality is in a lot of ways is it is people looking for those who are in positions of power. And this doesn't just mean being the president. It can mean social power, social comfort, right? That have an ease with which they move through the world and then wanting to align with them. That's what that draw is when you feel someone. They just have something that you're like, gosh, I want that. And traditionally, it's a sense of comfort and power. When you have an open, healthy, happy posture, that conveys comfort and power to people. Conversely, even when you're not feeling down, but if you've just developed a hunched posture, that is going to make people perceive you in a very, very different light. So this is why this is so important. We're going to go into, in other videos that'll be coming up, how to actually adjust your posture for your life. Because the truth is, what a lot of people do is they do quick fixes. I'm going to give you some quick fixes now, but much better than thinking about how to fix your posture every single time you walk into a room is just setting it up so that it is there for you whenever you need it, right? So the first question is, what is good posture, and then how do we do it? Good posture very typically means centered alignment. So what a lot of people have, whether it's because of the gym or hunched over, is they have alignments that are not centered, right? So if you were to draw that line through their body, their shoulders are pulled forward, maybe their butt kicks out like this, and I'm exaggerating, but those are the types of things that a few centimeters are actually noticeable by people's subconscious and acted on, right? People get a sense for you. So what you want to do is be cognizant. Okay, first off, am I aligned? For a lot of people, that means pulling your shoulders back. So if you're like this, going to here. It also oftentimes means, and we'll do this in later videos, centering your hips, right? We're going to work on that. But the one quick way to get this sort of alignment when you walk into a room, and a very common tip, is to imagine that a piece of string is tied from all the way from the base of your spine, up through your spine, out the roof of your head, and is pulled up when you walk into a room. So as you walk into a room, you might, slouch it out, and you're like, oh, stand up straight. And that string sort of elongates your spine, right? That is a quick fix. Like I said, we'll go into all the other things that you can do a little bit later. Right now, I just want to get the general idea of posture out there. Secondly, the way that you carry yourself is not just how you're physically standing, right? It's also how you walk, how you move, the fluidity that you express. And again, I'm sure you can think to times in your life where you've entered a room that you were nervous. Maybe you were there to take a test or get the presentation, and you sort of just walked in tight, like this, arms crossed. Maybe you weren't pissed, maybe you weren't sad, maybe there was just a day that you were cold and you walked in like this. Unfortunately, people's subconsciouses do often not register the difference between cold and nervous because they can look a lot the same way. So what you want to do is start to break the habits of walking in a tight and constricted manner. I'm going to show you two examples of a bad way to enter a room and a good way to enter a room coming up. But the things to look out for. When you move, you generally want to expose the traditionally vulnerable parts of your body. And I mean like vulnerable in a physical sense. So that's the inside of your palms, wrists, elbows, your neck. When you pull your shoulders back, you expose more of your chest. Again, this codes for comfort and power. Because if you were going to walk around some tribe, I don't know, 50,000 years in the past or whatever evolution is occurring, even farther back, the idea that you can do it without having to defend yourself conveys a sense of power. Conversely, if you have to walk around constantly guarding your spots, if you think of some sort of a fighter that is guarding his vulnerable spots, that conveys that you are under attack. And when you convey that you're under attack in a room, people subconsciously do not want to align with you. So, this is the broad strokes on posture. I want to go now to two more examples of what a good entrance and a bad entrance looks like. And then I'll do the longer breakdown of how you can set up your posture for your life, right? So it's not just a string going through your back. It's something that you have all the time. And this is a series of stretches and a little bit of changes to your exercise routine that you can do to really, really help. So I've searched long and hard for this clip. It took me quite a bit of time to find, but here it is. You can't find people doing awkward walkouts. They don't even show it for very long. But I just want you to notice two things. First off is the
you know, the smile that isn't there, right, and how that just makes things feel uncomfortable. And two is how Daniel Radcliffe does not really move his body. He's extremely rigid from the walk to the handshake. So it goes very quickly, but pay attention to those two things.
Daniel Radcliffe, try to understand. Try to understand the magic you
So everything from the handshake to the sit down, his arms are plastered to his sides. He comes out not smiling. He looks like a deer in headlights. That is an example of a very, very poor entrance. And now I'm going to go overboard, showing you one that I love because it's just so magnetic, honestly. Things to pay attention. Obviously, there's a freedom of movement here that is extreme and exaggerated, and probably not one that you're going to mimic when you walk into most rooms. But a topic that I'm going to bring up later is one of not necessarily checking in all the time, right? Not looking to the people around you or the audience to see if they like your shenanigans, right? So just notice how much dancing actually goes down before Terry Crews like checks in with the audience. So right there, he just had like he looked when he came in, but then he just had like a 10-minute shuffle spin, 10-second shuffle spin thing going on, and he finally checks in. So that complete freedom of movement, obviously, appropriate to the Ellen Show, because people sometimes do that when they come out, but really makes him a spectacle to watch. And also, you notice the difference between him and Daniel Radcliffe. Terry Crews really controls the pace. Daniel Radcliffe is like, I better get to that chair as fast as possible. Terry Crews comes up, spins around, looks at the audience, gives her a hug, fakes sitting down, dances some more. That controlling the pace, again, something we're going to dive more into, that is a very magnetic thing. So he doesn't feel that he needs to quickly assume his position. He takes time to express himself on his way there. Very, very, very magnetic qualities.
So let's get started with capturing attention. Now, obviously, on the one hand, you could run into a room, shout fire, and everyone's attention would immediately be on you. That's not a good way to do it, right? And so the corollary for that is that there are good ways and bad ways to capture attention. Bad ways are going to bother people and be obnoxious. Good ways are going to capture attention in a way that makes them intrigued and want to know more about you. So it all comes down to with what emotions you are capturing attention. And what you want to convey to the world to capture attention in a very, very positive way is going to be comfort, confidence, and power. This is biologically, psychologically, again, programmed into human beings. We are looking for people that appear confident, and powerful because should we align ourselves with those people, those three emotions, those three feelings are a fantastic indicator that we're going to do okay. Because if they feel comfortable, confident, powerful, all of these positive things, the indication is that they've got it put together. Versus on the flip side, if they're feeling nervous, not in a good spot, our brain immediately goes to, all right, this is not someone that I want to align myself with, because something is not going right for them. They've not got it under control. So comfort, confidence, and power. How can you convey this? Now, there's a number of ways, but let's just start at the top. Very, very basic, a common piece of advice, and one that I would be remiss not to echo, is to smile. Smile often, right? There's oftentimes this debate going back and forth between whether you should be the non-reactive brooder or the happy-go-lucky. I personally tend to, and I've seen better results when testing, the smiling piece, right? So a couple times that you should definitely smile. Entering a room, right? You don't necessarily need to fake a smile, but if you do sort of force like the smile for a second, go, okay, here we go, entering a new room, it's not just a fake smile. You're putting yourself in a more positive state. Because you see, like I did there, It starts with, oh God, here we go. But at some point, you laugh at yourself because it's ridiculous. And now you are genuinely a little bit happier and a little bit more positive than you were seconds before. So entering a room, entering a conversation, my gosh, when people are introduced to someone and they don't smile, that is a bit of a slap in the face. Some people play this off. They can play the aloof individual and really make people want to work to earn their attention and to earn that sort of positive feedback. It is a tougher maneuver to pull off. So smiling when you're introduced to people, really, really smart. And then thirdly, intermittently while you speak. If you watch this, and again, it's a little bit tricky because I'm speaking to a camera and not a human being. For instance, right now, I speak through a smile. And it's not just in my teeth, it's also in my eyes. So intermittently while you speak, you want to interject smiles, positive energy. All of that stuff helps to capture attention because, again, it conveys comfort, confidence, and power. I would not be smiling if I was under direct attack right now. So, smile. Secondly, moving on to eyes. This is something I've actually not seen discussed, but once you've heard it, you're going to see it all over the place, and it's this. There's a number of different ways you can use your eyes and your body that are going to convey a sense of being prey, and a number of ways that convey sort of being predator. And I don't mean in the sense that you're hunting, but that there is no other threat on you, right? You've got a sort of a more languid, loose approach. But let's just start at the top. At the very basic, you've got the little left-right motion of your eyes. And I think there's even an emoji that has this where it's like, oh God, I've been busted. And there's that quick darting back and forth motion in your eyes. This is not good, and it's what a lot of people do when they get into public spaces. They go out, they're at some sort of networking event, they hold their drink very stiff, they talk to their one friend, but they're looking all over the place, right? Their attention is not directed where their body is, rather their eyes are banging back and forth. This is not good. You do not want to do this. Moving down the chain. This reminds me, this next one, of almost like a squirrel or a bird, and it's this. It's the rotating of the neck and the eyes together, left and right. Again, you can do this on occasion, right? You can peer over your shoulder, but what this communicates typically is that you do not have the comfort to display what you're looking at, right? Maybe you're glancing at the pretty guy or girl over to your left, over here, and you don't want to get caught, so you go up this, and they see you, and you quick go back. Doesn't even have to be that quick, but when you're only directing your gaze with your neck and eyes, one of the things that that communicates is that you're not totally comfortable being seen focusing on what you're focusing on. And in fact, if you're speaking to a person and you're looking over here like this, that is going to kill your magnetism. So what you typically want to do is have not just your eyes and your neck, but your entire body and your feet directed at what you're looking to. So it's the difference between what I just showed you and this. So if I see a pretty girl over here and I look in this direction, I can turn to face over here. If I see her over here, I go like this. When I have faced my body in the direction of what I'm looking at, what I am sub-communicating is that I am not afraid to get caught looking at what I'm looking at, right? I am also communicating that my full attention is there. I'm not sort of speaking to you, nodding over here while something is going on in this direction. So just notice, the next time you go into a semi-stressful public place, whether it's a bar, or a networking event, or some sort of company corporate lunch where people feel a little bit forced to mingle, how do people use their eyes, their neck, and their body? And focus on moving yours to the degree that you can as a unit. Absolutely some room for looseness, right? You can glance over your shoulder, go like this, but tend and try to keep your focus directed where your body is. That harnesses your intensity and of the gaze that you have, and is going to make the people that you're speaking to feel much more appreciated, heard, understood while you look at them, because you're not just, standing like this, gazing off, nodding. This is sort of dismissive. So that's eyes, which brings me to my final point regarding your eyes. This is so important, but what a lot of people do is they might glance over, see someone, and as they're sort of scanning a room, they'll make eye contact with someone by accident. And the way that they handle this is by quick looking away, oftentimes down. You don't want to do this. First off, if you must break eye contact with whoever you're looking at, and this can be someone that you're passing on the street, someone that you by accident caught eyes with in a room, or even just someone in conversation, You tend not to want to look down. Down is a submissive motion, right? If you've ever seen a dog after you came home and he tore the house apart and he knows what he did, he's going like this. He's like walking up to you with his head down. Same sort of thing is present in humans. You do not want to break eye contact to look down. If you must go left or right, that communicates that simply your attention has been brought elsewhere. All that said, the ideal here is going to be to maintain eye contact. And not just in some sort of chicken challenge where it's who can break who first as I stare menacingly at them. What you want to try to do is get very quickly into rapport and see if you can get them to match you. What I mean with all those big complicated words is you make eye contact and you flash a smile, right? And if they smile back or even smile and glance down, it means that they've matched you, right? That is so huge. You've taken potentially a stranger that you're walking past on the street who does not know you, and in a matter of microseconds, you've gotten them to fall into some amount of rapport with you where they match you. You smile, they smile back. At this point, if it's in a room in any sort of context where you're expected to be social, if you smile, they smile back, you have complete liberty to go up and speak to them. In fact, that would be the really magnetic thing to do, right? Because they sort of sensed you, you came over, and oh my gosh, now you're speaking to them. So the big thing here, if you're going to break to the left or right, try not to break down. And secondly, this is just a little challenge that you can take upon yourself in your day, whether this means walking down the hallway of the office or on your way to work as you take the street. Start to make eye contact with people. A lot of people never look others in the eye, right? They're always looking at their face or their body or their something, and they've got quickly darting eye motions. Pay attention to any of the most charismatic people. They tend to have strong eye contact. So make that eye contact and then see if you can flash a smile and get one in return. Fantastic exercise for capturing attention. All right, continuing with capturing attention, we move down from the eyes to the voice box. And interestingly enough, tonality is not just about the voice box, but I'll get to that in a second. With tonality, what you're trying to do is have a deeper, more resonant voice. This is going to be more comfortable. And you can obviously think about the converse and why that would be. When you're nervous and your voice gets really high, that conveys nervousness and things that do not make people want to align with you. It's a tension. It's a discomfort with the world. When it's a little bit slower, a little bit lower, and it fills the room, that is what you're aiming for. Now, it's worth noting that I don't have particularly deep voice, and you may not either. This goes for women as well as men. The goal then is not to have an objectively deep voice. It's to be speaking relative to your range in that lower area. Not talking up here because you're nervous and you don't want to bother anybody, but speaking at your most resonant, comfortable chest area voice. And I'm not going to get into chest voice. It's a singing term, but I will touch very quickly on some of the singing exercises, or at least one of, that you can do to activate this area more often. So if you want more, I've done lots of these exercises. I'm very interested in singing. I'm learning myself. They are a little bit intensive. You can spend, a half an hour or more per day on these sorts of things, but they have a phenomenal effect on your ability to project, and that is so huge for presence. So if you want more, feel free to reach out to me, charlie@charismaoncommand.com. I'll find a way to get them to you. But for now, I want to touch on the most basic one that anyone can use, whether or not they want to go deep with this, and it's called a lip roll. So lip roll goes like this. You can use it in any sort of situation where you feel like your voice is starting to climb and you're speaking more with your throat, like if I were to talk like this up here, as opposed to putting the stress on your torso, on your body. You want your body to support your tone, not your throat. And what a lot of people do is when they're nervous, they grab with their throat. So how do you get back to body support? Lip roll, very, very simple. And you can do this just by stealing away into the bathroom or sort of by walking through the space. But it goes like this. Looseness in your face. You can massage it out if you want to, starting under here, up here, even into here. You don't have to do this part. And then it is just a very, very loose. Allow the air to just come out. You're not pushing it out. If you push it out, that's actually not activating the muscles like you want to. It's sort of a loose, it's not a push, it's more just a like that. And what you're aiming for here is to feel reflexively your diaphragm grab. And you might feel it in your butt, you might feel it in your front, you might feel it in your back, your lower back. All parts, that's all really, really good signs. That means that your body is engaging the air. So you go like this 2 or 3 times. You can even shake your head to really loosen the throat. Right? And then if you want, you can add tone. I like to go high to low. So feel that in my body, and now when I speak, it is absolutely, the weight is being shouldered much more by my diaphragm than by my throat. And this is something that I'll do in between takes to just sort of reset to make sure that I'm speaking from my body. Fantastic exercise. Try it when you're out. You will notice, if correctly, an immediately more resonant voice just by making sure that you're not grabbing with the throat. Moving along. Next up, gesticulations. This is one that I love. And I see this very, very commonly, that people think they're gesticulators, but they tend to talk just from in here. They've got an invisible box that goes like this, and as they motion, they're stuck in this box. Their elbows are pinned to their sides. What you want to be thinking about with gesticulations, again, are those emotions that you want to convey: comfort, confidence, and power. So what would those gesticulations look like? When you think about it, they would be big, they would be loose. You would not be so concerned with if you were taking up space. And this is what we find. The leaders of tribes, like literal tribes, as well as CEOs, people in positions of power in their friend group, they take up more physical space. And they do this oftentimes by draping their hands over furniture, by gesticulating largely. What I want to focus on for now is your large gesticulations. And what I recommend doing is adding one gesticulation into your arsenal that requires you to extend your arm. Because what happens is we get locked into a pattern, right? And we're like, okay, I'm doing great with the gesticulations. But we never break out of the box by going like this. So that's one thing to do, is just next time you're out and you have to point in some direction, it's not over there, it's over there. That'll help. Another thing to consider with gesticulations is you neither want to be very tense nor very loose. And I know that this makes it, oh God, then what do I want to be? It's much easier demonstrated than it is explained. So let me just show. Tense would look like rapid motions going over here. It's very authoritative, boom, boom. We're going to go 1, 2, 3 over here, boom, boom, boom. That is a very rigid gesticulation. More loose would be like this. There's a floppiness in the wrist. We're going to go over here, we go over here, we go over here, we go over here. Again, they both have, this one is perhaps a little bit authoritative and intense. This one is really, really loose, relaxed, and not conveying any sort of power. What you want to do is move almost like you're in molasses or water. So it's a smooth motion out to the side. It's a smooth motion here. You can pause, stop, bring it back in, point to yourself, point to other people, explain something, you just had a thought. All of these sorts of things are going to really, really help with your gesticulations. And if you like, add any number of these. So next time you have a thought, go like this. Next time you want to say something, go like this. Next time you're counting, you can put up your hands and go like this. If you see a gesticulation out in the world that you like, this is what I do. I just make sure to force myself to use it a couple of times until it becomes habit. This is really, really helpful. Moving along, past just what you're doing with your hands, is your gait. How do you walk into a room? Now, unfortunately, because of the size of this, I can't show you an appropriate walk, but what I can do is one better. And the best thing I think for looking at gaits is how people walk out onto talk shows. And you can almost immediately tell the tone of an interview based on how the person walks out from behind the white curtain. So I've got a couple good, I've got a couple bad. I'll show you at least one of each, and that'll be later in the episode. But what you see is that people walk kind of like this, and then they give the handshake like this, and then they sit down like this. It's going to be a slightly awkward interview. They're going to be tense, they're going to be uncomfortable, and their answers are not going to be fantastic. When people are loose and they give, a comfortable handshake, they smile while they do it, take a moment to wave to the crowd, and then plop in their seat, They're much more laid back. The interview is going to be more funny and more comfortable because of the mentality that they have going in, which is communicated immediately by their gait. And the last thing with regard to this section is going to be how to interact with people when you're right there. And what I'm thinking of specifically is touching, right? So if you've ever watched Bill Clinton, this is another area where he really, really excels. And he'll be speaking to someone, be really, really close, locked in with eye contact. He'll shake their hand, put another one on their shoulder, and just get zoned in on them. And at first you can see they sometimes recoil, but he has such a presence and is so focused with them that after a while it almost feels paternal and they can't help but like him. Now, Bill Clinton is an extreme, but what I would venture a guess, if you are like any of the other people that I've worked with, is that you are not touching nearly enough. And the reason I say that you're not touching enough is because touching actually breeds intimacy. It's not just that you need to have a long history with someone to be able to touch them. The faster that you break down the physical barriers of touch, right? If you think of a friend where you hugged the first time for whatever reason because you were out drinking together, you become friends faster than if you just part ways with a handshake. So apply this principle to all of the interactions that you have. The faster that you can sort of break down the touch barrier, the faster you are going to develop lasting friendships and convey that sort of magnetic personality. They're going to feel drawn to you with just a little bit of time having passed, not even knowing why. Couple of tips with touching. A touch is not a tap. This is not a touch. This is an attack. This is an assault. You don't want to do it that way. Wherever you're touching, you want to ideally rest your hand there for about a second or two and then remove it. Some good spots to do this. Forearm, while you're making a point or they're making a point or they make you laugh or something. Shoulder, a great one to just say hi, bye, oh, I just wanted to tell you, we have to finish this project and I'll catch you later. Shoulder's great. If you're sitting, the knee is a great one. Again, these are for guys and girls. This is not going to invade anyone's privacy. If you just rest your hand on the knee for a second, go, oh, today I want to tell you we've got lunch over at Chipotle. You're welcome to come. Right? Completely and totally fine. So those are three things. It's not a quick tap. A quick tap is going to actually upset people more than a quick, 1 second long touch and a removal. And I recommend keeping them as you start 1 to 2 seconds. So da-na-na, off. I think that was about 1 or 2 seconds. So that is touching, something that's going to help a lot with this sort of magnetic personality, because as you break down that touch barrier, people feel more connected to you. Actual studies have shown this, that literally touching for 1/40th of a second actually allows people to connect faster. And they did this with just taps, handshakes, all that sort of stuff. Ideally, it's the 1 second on, 1 second off. You can do this with guys and girls. So now we're going to move not just into how to capture attention, but how to pull people into your world. So that is coming up next. Quick pause, actually, before I dive into how to pull people into your world. I just want to take a second to talk about the mindset of capturing attention, because I recognize that for some people, this sounds like very showboaty, very diva, right? Speak loud, take up a lot of space, touch people. What goes through a lot of people's minds is that they don't want to bother others, and they don't want to be the needy person who is just trying to get all eyes focused on them. And I totally understand that objection. It makes a lot of sense. But what I would say is that matters is where you're coming from. Are you coming from a place where you're trying to gather attention to yourself so that you can stroke your own ego? Or are you doing it because if you develop a magnetic personality and you can draw people to you, you have more to share with the world and you can bring more amazing things from other people into your own life? So as you think about this going forward, really get clear on your intentions if this is something that bothers you. And what I would encourage you to do is, even if it feels strange and it might feel awkward to speak louder than normal and have people listening in on your conversations, right? It might feel awkward to gather eyes on you as you're gesticulating bigger than you're used to, or to have people react instantaneously when you touch them. All of that might feel strange. In fact, if you've never done it before, I can almost guarantee at first it's going to feel different, potentially awkward. What I would say is to realize that the intention, again, is not to be a diva. You have to realize that if you don't stand out in these ways, in some way, you are signing up to not have a magnetic personality, because by its very definition, a magnetic personality is one that's different from others, right? It doesn't do the same old things. It doesn't limit itself to the same old box of gesticulations, the same old inside speaking voice, the same old way of making eye contact, the same old standards of touching. It does something different, thereby drawing people to them in a way that is really exciting for them. So that's all. I understand this might be awkward. I would just encourage you to try, because if you're doing it and if you are starting to feel more people paying attention, it's actually a really good indicator that you're moving in more new, empowering directions for your own life. All right, here we go. Pulling people into your world. I really like this part because it has everything to do with pace and energy, right? Pulling people into your world is a matter of making them follow you on an emotional journey to where you are going. So this is why the pace and the energy of what you're saying is so critical. Now, what I want to emphasize is that it actually doesn't matter what pace and what energy you choose. You can go slower or faster. The thing is, you first need to capture attention, as we discussed. So typically speaking, you need to enter into a conversation or a room at a higher energy than the people around you. I don't mean this in any sort of mystical way. What I mean is higher energy typically speaks louder, has these big gesticulations, and is the person that you are aware of in a room, right? There's this common myth that you can go in as a brooder, because people have seen Marlon Brando films or something like this, and they watch his character come in and he has this quiet intensity that just draws people to him. What they neglect to realize is that he is on a big screen that everyone is watching, and everything he's doing is scripted. If your attention was not forcefully directed to that quiet intensity, say you just were out in a room, right, and say that Marlon Brando wasn't ridiculously good looking back in the day, you probably wouldn't notice that. So while you can certainly slow the energy down as conversation develops, you tend to need to capture attention with a higher energy, right? So what I want to talk about now is how do you pull people into your sort of level? Like, how do you pull people into your world specifically with regards to energy? Because there's two kinds. I am going to now demonstrate the one that is less my style, and this is a slower, lower energy and pace. The big thing with a low energy is that it's not actually quieter. What it is more staccato, if you will. It is more fractured by these sorts of pregnant pauses. And what the pauses do is they enable people to sort of sit on the edge of their seats. They feel sucked in by the vacuum of emptiness that you've left when there's not words there. What is critical, though, to make people know that you are not done speaking, is that your eye contact needs to be very, very focused. Fantastic example is a Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton talks to people. He often gets very close, and he's a slower speaker. He doesn't rush what he says. He has these pauses in between his thoughts. There's not ums and uhs to fill it. That's an absolute killer, particularly for the slower energy level. But what he does is he lets people know when he's done with them by where he directs his eye contact. So when he's done with someone, he'll nod at them and start to meander off. They know that each pause contains something behind it because his eye contact does not break. So important. So if you're going to take someone into a slower, lower energy, which is a great skill if you want to develop a more, what is the word? I guess intimate. I've sort of been using that a lot, but it's a more intimate connection with someone. If you want to slow down the energy, this is a great way to develop an intimate connection. Also, very, very good for storytelling. It gets people on the edge of their seats as they wonder what comes next. Not my preferred mode, but certainly one you can do. Last thing, gesticulations with the slower energy tend to match the speaking. If you go back and you watch me, the pauses are not just pauses in what I'm saying. there are pauses in how I move as well. That all contributes to this sense of, tell me more, tell me more. So that's the slower energy. I've tried my best to convey it. You can do this to build intimacy with people once you've captured their attention. You can do it to develop stories. The most important things are that you do not speak super quietly, at least at the get-go. It's a very, very advanced skill to be able to speak quietly and hold a group of people spellbound. Certainly something that you can do once you develop your storytelling skills. That actually is a fantastic tool, but at first, be careful because you might lose people, especially if you're in a room that has distractions. Now, for me, what is the much more comfortable mode of interaction I would call a higher energy. This is so important for interactions with multiple people often, right? Because what you need to do is capture the attention of everybody. And if you're slowly speaking to one person and just zoned in on them, it can be difficult to make all of the other conversations come to you. Now, the advantage of a faster interaction is that you don't actually have to make sustained eye contact with everybody, because the speed at which you're speaking and the passion behind your words communicates that you're not done talking, right? If I go to this slower mode and look away from you, you figure I'm done speaking. But as long as I'm going with this higher energy, you know what is there. Same sort of thing with gesticulations. They're wide. They tend to match when I speak, but there's obviously so much more words coming out that the words can oftentimes eclipse what I'm saying. Stays loud, very energetic, and equally important here, I don't want to overemphasize this, is the varying of tonality. It goes up and it can come down. All of that is going to help capture attention in the higher mode. So, with both of these, I gave you a little bit of playbook on how to use each of them. The critical thing here is that you lead people to these different modes. You're going to have to come in higher to take them there, but if you can then move to one mode and to another, you have established yourself as the person who sets the tone of energy for the interaction. This is the definition of a magnetic personality. Now, you've captured attention, you've taken it somewhere, you have sucked people into your world. This is how it's done.
So here is a good clip to show pacing. This is someone, Ryan Gosling, who a lot of people mark as being very charismatic, and his primary mode of doing this is by controlling the pacing. I wouldn't say he's incredibly funny. He's obviously a very good-looking dude, but if you notice this, notice the speed at which he walks and the pauses, the slightly extra space that he leaves between people speaking before he says what he has to say, and even in his own sentences. So this is slower pacing.
And you can see it beginning July 29th all across the country. Please welcome Ryan Gosling, ladies and gentlemen.
The guy moves like he's moving through molasses, and I swear he is always like this. Not only that, the characters that he plays are like this. The most extreme one, if you've seen the film Driver, he is so slow to respond, but that is like honestly perfect for this actor.
Yeah, I'm fine. Thank you very much. So much. What went wrong there? It seemed like there was some instability in the launch.
I'm too bottom heavy.
I see. Welcome to the program. Nice to see you. You know, I saw this film the other night. Very good movie. I really enjoyed it.
Can I hug you?
No.
So I'm going to play that back really quick. There's just an extra second before he says anything to Dave right here.
I saw this film the other night. Very good movie. I really enjoyed it.
Can I hug you?
No.
Okay.
I mean, for what purpose, really?
I just think you're the best. I'm so excited.
No, please.
So excited to be on your show.
So we're happy to have you here. I found this remarkable. Tell us who's in this picture, Ryan.
Okay.
Again, pacing. He knows everybody, obviously, but he takes his time.
That's TJ Fantini, and that's Tate. Forget Tate's last name. Nikki DeLoach, That's Justin Timberlake. He's a young upstart in the business. He's got a real future. Christina Aguilera, Britney Spears.
Wow.
And that's Ryan Reynolds.
That's very impressive. How?
So again, you can watch the whole thing. It's a matter probably of microseconds if you were to actually time it out. But he allows more space in his speaking, in his movements, in answering questions, in allowing other people to speak. And that, to him, he starts to control the pace of conversations that way. Now, this is not always the best strategy if you're out in a crowded area, being the slow-moving person, if you're not in a position of power, right, if you're not being interviewed, doesn't always control the pace because other people will just run right over you. But worth calling out, this is really his main MO in terms of being very, very magnetic and charismatic.
Continuing now with this idea of pulling people into your world, or when other people have pulled you into their world, what is going on? And I would put forward that one of the most important aspects of anyone that pulls into their world is that they have qualities of a performer. There's a sense that there is a performance going on and you should watch. And I don't mean that they're playing a character or being false or they're a completely different person than the one that they demonstrate in conversation. What I mean is that when they speak, you feel almost like you are a privileged audience member in the front row of a show. And the way that they move and the way that they speak and everything that they say conveys that they are on stage. They are this thing to be watched. And obviously it's a show with audience interaction, right? Because it's not just a one-way monologue of a conversation. But when they are speaking, for the time that they are speaking, they are not constantly checking in with everyone to see, oh, is it okay? Or are you waiting your turn to speak? Yes, they do sometimes and often, in fact, let other people speak. They're not just these monopolizers of conversation. But what they don't do is something that I see a lot of people do. So what I see is people will go in and they'll tell a joke and they'll say, you know, da-da-da-da, joke. And then they look around and see if it made people laugh. Or they'll go out to a bar and they'll go to the dance floor and they'll dance around. But the whole time they're sort of looking to see if people are paying attention. Or they're in conversation and they'll start to tell a story and they'll say, so my friend and I were at the mall and they're like immediately seeing how people are reacting and if people are paying attention. The most captivating people assume that people are paying attention and in fact are unfazed by it. So when they dance, they just dance. They are not looking around for anyone to be looking at them. When they tell a joke and people don't immediately laugh, it's like they don't even notice. They just keep adding on to it until people laugh, or they move topics of conversation unaffected by it. And when they're telling a story, even if people don't immediately pay attention, they continue on. So they'll say, so me and my friend went to this party, and there was this guy that was just standing there in the corner. Right? He's looking at us in this weird way, right? And they continue on with their story, and what happens is after 3 seconds, when they've not slowed down, people go, oh, time to pay attention now, right? This is the critical part. And I want to caveat this, because what I'm not suggesting that you go out and be completely oblivious to whether people care about your stories or not. There is obviously a degree that you need to be aware of what's going on. But the most common problem that I see, sure there are ramblers out there, but is that some people sell themselves short. They check in so often, they're checking in every 5 seconds with the people that they're speaking to, that they never get a chance to actually convey that performance-like quality. So what I recommend is checking in at specific times, right? You don't check in after you crack a joke immediately. You don't check in after 10 seconds of dancing. You check in after complete thoughts, after complete sentences. So a bad way, and a way that I've seen before is, you know, a bad way to check in mid-sentences. So we were going to this party, and never mind, you guys, what were you talking about, right? Finish your sentence. So we were going to this party, and my friend was there, and there was this guy in the corner. Oh, I'm sorry, what were you saying, right? You can still check in with other people, but it happens at the end of your thoughts, and your thoughts are all complete. You don't trail off at the end, you say them all. The jokes that you tell, you elaborate and take them as far as you go because they are funny to you. You dance because it is fun to you, and you're not checking constantly to see if other people are enjoying it or if they're not enjoying it. This is the element that is perhaps the hardest to integrate into your own life, because what it really is an independence of the opinions of others. We are out there to connect, we are out there to make friends, but the most captivating people know that if they go out there and be themselves and come in with their personality, that they're going to make some friends and they're not going to make others. And they do not need to constantly check to see how they're doing with every single person they interact with. Ironically, what this does is it makes them more friends than anyone else. But what most people need to do is to limit the amount of times, or the frequency rather, with which they check in, right? Don't check in every 5 seconds. Check in after complete thoughts, complete jokes. Still allow people to interact. Do not be a jerky rambler, but really pay attention to yourself. Are you cutting your sentences off? When you go and stand in a public place, are you really conscious of like what every single person is doing and reading so much into their eye contact that you can't even be in the moment enough to put on a good show for those around you? So this is the element of pulling people into your world. I want to go now to some examples of some people that do a fantastic job of doing this.
So for this clip, just keep in mind everything you've probably heard me say about having really spastic movements and putting your hands in your pockets, speaking too quickly, about how all those things can cut away at charisma and magnetism. And then watch this guy and ask yourself, what the heck is going on that so much can break down, but that he can still maintain people's attention, and in fact, I would say be incredibly magnetic in this situation. I will give you a hint, and then we'll discuss later something to look for. The fact that he is not necessarily checking in, that he is acting from his own interest and almost putting on a performance. So just take a look.
I would love to talk about stuff that I'm interested in, but unfortunately I suspect that what I'm interested in won't interest many other people. First off, my badge says I'm an astronomer. I would love to talk about my astronomy, but I suspect that the number of people who are interested in radiative transfer in non-gray atmospheres and polarization of light in Jupiter's upper atmosphere, the number of people would fit into a bus shelter. So I'm not going to talk about that. It would be just as much fun to talk about some stuff that happened in 1986 and 1987 when a computer hacker was breaking into our systems over at Lawrence Berkeley Labs, and I caught the guys, and they turned out to be working for what was then the Soviet KGB and stealing information and selling it. And I'd love to talk about that, and it'd be fun, but 20 years later, I find computer security, frankly, to be kind of boring. It's tedious. The first time you do something, it's science. The second time, it's engineering. The third time, it's just being a technician. I'm a scientist. Once I do something, I want to do something else. So I'm not going to talk about that. Nor am I going to talk about...
So again, just wanted to highlight there, this guy does everything wrong in terms of body language and the spastic movements. He tells corny jokes, and then he laughs at them, right? He hops around, he flails his hands. But with all of this stuff, he is not checking in. So very quickly we pick up that there's something about him that would be fun, that would be interesting to watch. We go into audience mode, and he seems to have this presence. Now, making myself clear here, I'm not saying that you want to adopt his oddness. But what I am saying is that you can get away with a lot of missteps, a lot of oddness, a lot of weirdness if, one, it is genuine, and two, you're committed to it, right? You don't go around trying to control every second of the interaction and make sure that people are always laughing on cue, paying attention, but you sort of just plow forward ahead. And I hate to make this comparison, but it's true. This is why people are often more gregarious, are better in social situations when they are drunk. And it's because they lose that sort of inhibitor that it says, I need to check in with people all the time. So just something to keep in mind in terms of cultivating a magnetic presence. A lot of it has to do with this sort of performing and commitment to what you're doing.
So the last element that I want to touch on for pulling people into your world that is really helpful, and it ties into the performance aspect a bit, is being present, right? When you are present to what is going on and what you are saying, and you're not constantly projecting yourself into the minds of everyone and what they're thinking constantly, that enables you to really, really suck people into your world because you're in the moment and they match you. They go there with you. One of the best ways to do this is to focus on your breath, right? And you want this to be something that's reflexive, but there's also times when maybe you're really nervous and you need to do a little bit of breathing beforehand. So a couple of things to focus on, right? If you are super hyped up, what oftentimes happens is then you speak really fast and you never catch your breath and you're talking, and it gets lighter and lighter and airier, and then you can hardly do it and your voice just cuts. Allow yourself to fill up. The cool thing about taking deep breaths, and I'm a fast talker, right? So I'm taking them in between fast, rambling like that. That's my energy level. But when you take a deep breath, the cool thing is that even if you're talking fast, it doesn't have to slow you down. But it fills you up in such a way that it lowers your tonality, it actually lowers your heart rate, it allows you to be more present. And in fact, what it does in terms of tonality and the gesticulations is it has all these positive side effects, right? When you take a deep breath, you feel relaxed, so you start to open up. When you take a deep breath, you tend to speak more lowly, and that low tonality is going to help you. You can still have a high energy, right? You can still have varied tonality, but focus the next time that you're out on drawing breath in as low as you can, right? What a lot of people do is they take shallow chest breaths. So if you need to, just for 4 breaths or even 10 if you really want to take a long time, draw it in as low as you can. Feel it almost in your pelvis, in your butt, right? In your lower back, in the front low abs. I personally don't like the really long ones because I prefer to have a higher energy, so there's a faster sort of cadence to mine. But the point is that when they go low, your voice drops, your gesticulations get better, and you get more present. So if you need this technique, it can be a really, really good one to help you settle down. Focus on your breath for a short period of time, and if you do notice that your voice is cutting out while you're speaking, give yourself time to breathe. It's going to slow your rate of speech and allow you to actually breathe while you're talking, which is kind of important. So now I very quickly just want to run through a lot of the points very, very fast that we touched on to sort of pull it all together and what you do when you walk into a room or a conversation. So upon entering, your goal is to capture attention, and that is typically through demonstrating comfort, power, goodwill. And a fantastic way to do this to walk in with a smile, right? That's the easiest way to demonstrate all of those things. As you move to people that are far from you, your posture is going to be so important. So do the exercises, right? This is for long. But even if you haven't done them or this is your first time going through, stand up straight, get that thing pulled, the rope pulled through your spine, shoulders back, vulnerable spots open. As you get closer and you begin to see people, hold eye contact. Don't break it down. If you have to, break it to the side. But your goal is to see them, smile, and get a smile in return. As you continue to walk, move your entire body, right? So I'm not worried about being seen. I'm not necessarily like constantly checking over my shoulder. That is not a powerful demonstration move. In terms of speaking, loud, right? It's so tough for a lot of people, but try to go a little bit louder. Try to get yelled at if you have to for being too loud. Like have your friends go, man, you are a loud talker, and see what sort of positive benefits accrue to your life in terms of who jumps into your conversation. Third, moving down the line as we go from eyes to voice, and now gesticulations, right? If you need to, reset them. Take a big, long, open, up, down, wave them all around. Now you have this sort of looseness to you, and ideally you can shake your legs out because you don't want your gait to be particularly stiff either. As you continue, you want your gesticulations to be neither really loose nor really stiff. It can be fluid, like you're moving through water. And if you show your palms, that's also a really, really good way to convey to someone goodwill and, again, a little bit of power. This down is power. This up tends to be a little bit more open. So I'm telling you what to do. I'm suggesting what to do. Moving now into pulling people into your world. So the big thing here is that you need to, first off, you need to get the mindset that what you want to do is have people pull in, but you cannot check in all the time, right? You've got to recognize that, yes, pace matters, okay? Who is matching whose pace is important. But if you are constantly, just constantly in that other person's head, it means that you're not present to the moment. So yes, do look for who's matching whose pace. Have they elevated if you're high? Do they tend to follow you when you take it a little bit lower, right? Do they tend to match you? Or do you find yourself chasing them around and matching them? And then when you do this, are you constantly checking in? If you are, slow it down. Your goal is to interact a little bit more based on your own intention and not so much if you're constantly being liked or not. I know it's paradoxical, but that is the type of thing that draws people to you. So add all this stuff together, do the exercises for posture, and what you'll find is that if you do this all in conjunction, you will begin to draw people to you magnetically. I know it sounds crazy if you've just watched this for the first time, but give it a try. And the way that I recommend is by doing one thing at a time. So first, you can focus on eye contact. Second, you can focus on gesticulations. But by focusing on one thing at a time for, say, a period of 3 or 4 days, what you allow yourself to do is to be present, because you're not focusing on 1,000 little things. It's one goal, and then you let yourself go. So that is it for the course on developing a magnetic presence and a magnetic personality. If you have any questions on this kind of stuff, you can feel free to reach out to me directly. My email is charlie@charismaoncommand.com, and I try to be very, very diligent about emailing anyone who has ever taken a course or read a book about this stuff. Sometimes it can be a backlog, but I do get back. So feel free to send in any questions or things that you weren't sure about, or even success stories. Honestly, I love those as well. If you are interested in learning more about this, I know this has been very heavily focused on body language and those sorts of things. If you're more interested in the conversational side of things, maybe you're interested in public speaking and in sort of tying it all together, we do have more courses on this that you can look up just by clicking on my name. So I think you go to my name, it'll say other courses by this person. Go ahead and check that out. And then, of course, I do have books and other things on the website, www.charismaoncommand.com. The book is called Charisma on Command, and you can check that out as well. Hope this has been helpful, and looking forward to hearing more from you.